Hey, uh, greetings to the African family, Sanwan Bachani, Melang, Sheni. Greetings, African family. Take very long with this video. Really, I just wanted to, I just wanted for us to have a conversation. Uh, a family conversation. This is not geopolitical positionality. You know, some of it you may not as South Africa. So I'm just going to discuss just you know our just because they are of a certain race or racial category or whatever. Those bogus concepts, you treat me like a human being, I will treat you like a human being. Makes sense, right? Because the universe is about balance. So right now the universe is imbalanced because, as Africans really were tolerating things we shouldn't. And so, yeah. And again, another thing, as I keep explaining these things, the name you see there at the bottom of the screen, Gov, not the real name per se, but it's a name I assigned to myself based on the name of one of my great ancestors, Goba Masenga. So you see, I took the first part of it, just calling myself Gov. This will be my stage name because I don't want to use my real name in the conversation. But let's go with Gov. All right, I think it sounds cool. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. So Steve Biko was practicing Ubuntu, and the philosophy of Black consciousness, I actually think, is a true expression of Ubuntu. Because the first precept is that as Black people, we have to speak for ourselves. We have to be our own agents in raising issues that pertain to us. So no one has to be our mouthpiece. We speak for ourselves and we express based on our real lived experiences. That is what we express, our real lived experiences. It's not an academic exercise for us. It's not like doing research and all of that stuff. This is our lived reality. So I want you to understand, every time I say Ubuntu Awakening or Ubuntu, just think Black consciousness. Basically, Black people who understand themselves and who are clear about their position in the world and their positionality politically. So this is where we start. I want you to understand my political position. I mean, I have gone full circle. I've gone through various ideologies. I've joined ideologies. I've studied ideologies. I'm pretty familiar. And politically, I mean, I hear a lot of voices from the left, the right, and so on. I'm not there. I'm not not any of that. I'm in the Ubuntu position, the African position. And if things on the left makes sense for the African position, sure, let's go with it. If not, and you are going to hear the things that I question, both on the left and the right. You understand? Because I have this thing about ideology, It has this way of going into your brain and extracting the sense. And then you'll end up saying stuff like, in pre-colonial Africa, we never had borders. You're going to say, silly stuff like that. And then in the same breath, you're going to come out and say, oh no, European versions of Africa's history are wrong. They say we were just savages. And yet we had civilization, we had kingdoms and empires. Well, my friend, a kingdom or an empire is a defined territory. It's defined by borders. So from here to here is my kingdom or my territory, borders. And you don't just come in. And I mean, if we have an honest logical, sober assessment of African history, yes, this was the case. And that's why all these kingdoms had armies, they had political systems and structures in place to defend that particular kingdom or nation. We had borders, y'all. But I'm just saying, I'm just illustrating ideology, and that's why I have somewhat of an aversion to following any ideology, because once you're in it, you cannot ask questions. You can't question it, and even if you do have questions about it, you can't say anything that is contrary to the ideology or what is core to the ideology. So that's why I don't want to associate, but um I'm very clear about my position. So my position, I stand. You remember my ancestor I just mentioned, Wamaseng or Gowamaseng. Now, Gowamaseng is my ancestor. I come from a royal family, and so I understand a little something about these issues of kingdom and governance. And so, you know, my ancestors were warrior king. Gwamasenga had many sons, and most of them were kings, kingdoms, throughout the land in the northern parts of South Africa. So, yeah, my first allegiance is to myself, because I understand myself as a human being before I think about, any of these issues of race, social categories, and class, and all that other stuff that people go on about. I am beholden to myself. My loyalty is first to myself. It is then to my ancestors, because these are the people whose DNA I carry, but they are hoping that I am going to champion their interests. And their interests and my interests are intertwined. So you see, this is how it goes. You have to think of it as a concentric circle. I am at the center, me as an individual, I am at the center of that circle. And from there, it's my loyalty to my ancestors, my loyalty to my family, my loyalty to my community, my loyalty to my country, in that order. So I, you know, of course, once I've gone outside my immediate circle and we are starting to talk about political matters and affiliation, I'm straight up a Pan-Africanist. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying remove the borders and one Africa unite, we just, paradise, kumbaya. No, I don't think so. This is not my position. And that's a topic for another day. But just to clarify that, my understanding Pan-Africanism, it is we need to unite our efforts so that we have more political and social power as a group, which can then benefit all of us. So you are not going to hear me joining any of these right-wing folks, you know, uh, uh, speaking against Africans and, trying to say that we just want to focus on race all the time. No, race is a reality that we don't focus on it. It just deals with us. you know. So race and racism, they just deal with us day to day. So we're not trying to focus or be obsessed, race obsessed. I'm not race obsessed, but I do have a logical brain that works, and I'm able to observe things globally and locally in terms of politics and what's happening. I think those who have been keeping an eye on what is happening globally, uh, you you know that in the past few years, let's say 5 years, this is not to say that the issues they're raising are not valid. I'm a man, I understand. A lot of the things they are raising makes sense. And that's why initially, when I came into contact with this red pill content, I mean, it I, I was good at processing thought. Um, but I don't. The approach is position, and that's why we got the outcomes that we got. Think about markers of that. Here we still are, folks. So it's something we're not getting quite right, and that's an internal reflection we have to have. One of the things I think we need to start doing is we need to start really questioning this idea that for us to succeed, we need to have, they call it critical mass in politics. So, they want to have, this large number of people supporting a cause, and then we're going to put pressure on the state, and then we're going to put pressure on the international community for things to change and stuff like that. This is not how power is brokered in a real sense. It's part of it, but it's not complete. You have to really think long and hard about infrastructure. You have to think long and hard about planning, strategy, security. All of these, you have to think about the full picture. You can't just be focusing on protesting and voting, you know, Train yourself, folks. We should train. We should train ourselves to be physically fit and war ready at any given time, because the world is very unstable these days and you never know what's going to happen. So you gotta always be ready. I mean, apparently America is very angry with us, since our country, went and decided to get involved in the Middle East, yeah, peace in the Middle East, yeah, and I mean it. I wish peace, for all people, but why would I prioritize people in other countries when in this country we've got major issues? We've got real issues here. He's saying people who are going to international courts and this and that, try and fight for Palestine, free Palestine. I am not against it, but I'm just saying, man, on the list of priorities, your hierarchy of priorities is not making sense to me. They say charity begins at home. You know, I mean, you can hardly address the questions of land in South Africa. You want to go deal with Palestine and Israel? How you won't even touch it. It's that conflict is so deep and entrenched. You can't even touch it. You can't move it. And the other thing is, I've never heard the Palestinians coming out to speak for our issues. Easy example, we know the absolute racist attitudes and practices of Arab people against Africans. It's not just a European thing, because they too have this notion that we are somehow subhuman. So, all these groups, Asians, the Europeans, all of them, all these groups, you will come across them and you will get a sense that they look at you like you are somehow beneath them because you're African. Deal with that, you understand? I ain't down with that. And so, I think Africans don't have an obligation to prioritize anyone else's issues. We are number one at the bottom of the food chain, and we've got multiple issues. We even have problems with our own leadership. How in the world, with the with the kind of issues you have, you are trying to go and be the superhero of the world? Folks, let me get into today's topic. That was the introduction. But red pill, yeah, as I have said, red pill, initially, because when I first came into contact with this red pill content, it was at a difficult time in my life. Just experienced a painful, traumatic breakup, and then you get on YouTube and you start hearing men, you know, speaking, and they're making sense because of what you're going through, but also because of the context that we live in. I think there are a lot of valid points, like the modern world and what it means for relationships. I think this was a necessary conversation. But I also look at the right wing elements. I mean, in Red Pill, you're talking about people like Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit. If you know these guys, if you don't know them, you maybe be finding out about them. Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, Rollo Tomasi, the Daily Wire, Candace Owens, and all these folks, right wing, and then they talk about being conservative. All this confusing terminology. They say conservative because they have these so-called traditional values. And then, you get black people who then end up calling themselves conservative. European I, I get it. That's why I said beware European propaganda. All of these things are part of European propaganda, you know. And I have a few videos I want to share with you today. Yeah, just to highlight some of the points I'm making so that it doesn't seem like I'm just pulling this stuff out of nowhere. But number one, the point I wanted to make was that as much as the red or the manosphere seems to be a counter thesis to feminism and some of the issues there, but really, if you look at it, these are both ideologies coming from the same source. First, they gave sisters feminism. Then, some years went by, and then, we were tussling with each other there, fighting. And then now, red pill, guys, there is something for you too there, take this position, you can die on this hill and defend yourself. Game, man. Like I looked at this thing globally. I looked at it overall, and I looked at the bigger picture. I was like, oh boy, game. Oh, they got game. You got game, man. Game for real. So for me, red pill feminism, I get firstly, my issues with red pill, it's right wing stuff that they talk. There are valid points that are being made. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like I make such an ignorant statement, but a lot of it. So when you go into that space and you have all these, I really think as an African, your power of the European in the black community, a man specifically. So yeah, all I can say is I really haven't seen any leaders in the South African political scene. Maybe you guys can help me out, but anyway, I'm gonna try keep it short in terms of the video. I'm not a reaction videos person. I just thought just for evidence, let's see what we're talking about, what we're discussing. But yeah, right-wing ideology, all of that. And I do believe that as Africans, we need to have our own masculinity, femininity, geopolitics, national politics, economics. All of that has to be decided by ourselves in terms of what our position is there. We can't let them define intersexual dynamics for us. You understand? It won't make sense. And the other similarity I saw between manosphere and feminism is that in the same way, and you see, like with any ideology, it starts at some core center, and then all of a sudden you have these branches spreading out, and then you have different versions of this thing. Same thing happened with feminism. There are versions of feminism. The radical black feminism, and all of that. And yeah, in the same way that I've always rejected all of those ideas because they don't speak to me. I don't feel they have anything to do with me. Same thing with red pill. And so it doesn't mean I dismiss all these ideas completely. I can hear valid arguments on both sides. In the same way, I can hear valid arguments from right-wing politics and left-wing politics. But you're not gonna get me to join your group. Sorry. Unless you are here, over here on the African side, we can talk about something. You see. And so, you see, my understanding, when I'm talking about starting from the core of me being a human being in a specific environment, and I understand. If you think about it as pre-modern times, like if we were still pretty much in the jungle, out in nature, dealing with the elements, my concerns would be, first of all, survival. And that has to do with water, food, and all of that, and shelter. I'll be thinking about that. As an individual, how do I do this? And to survive as a man, I will then think about, okay, perhaps, having a woman by my side will help me, better navigate this landscape. And it helps her too, because I would have certain attributes that would help her out in the wild. You see that? So there's an allegiance there that forms. But then there's community, which has to build out beyond that, beyond the nuclear family. Because now I need a group of other people who identify with me in order to secure, you understand, myself, my family, my possessions. Do you see that? So now I get a group around me. Obviously, this group is going to need to have a leader, so that we can make decisions and move things along. You understand? And then it sort of evolves from there. And now as a community, we then think about, okay, which other communities can be our allies? Then you go into the formation of nations and, and so on, and kingdoms and. But main point being, I am at the center of my universe, Starts with, I start at me. I don't start with black, white, high, middle class, low class. I don't start there. Start with me. Me, my ancestors, their legacy, and then we build it out from there. So we understand each other, folks. Let's look at this. Let us start with this video here by Duke Jackson from the USA. He's talking here about Elon Musk and some of the race-related issues that always seem to come up. Make these things a focus. They just happen. So get on to it. On with it. Just react.
Me, I'm not the kind of black content creator that blames all our problems on white people. I'm not the kind of black person that believes in marching or Black Lives Matter or blaming the white man for having his foot on our neck. And even though I do acknowledge that white supremacy and racism is very real in our community, I come on here every day talking to our people to make a change because we're the only people who can change ourselves. Now, with that being said, there are some opportunities here in the world. Where you get certain Caucasian people talking crazy about blacks. Got the YouTube channel called Scott Adams Tells White People to Stay the F Away from Black People, episode 44. Make sure you guys check that out. Hit the bell on that classic. But anyways, Scott.
Yeah, so my connection is not great. So I'm just gonna try and explain these
A cartoonist
stories and what's happening with them. Basically, here,
most known for the Dilbert cartoon, the newspapers. Most of us,
based on some bogus
have grown up
this
looking
white guy
at that, or we've seen that many,
black people
many times.
Like the research he presented said, 50% of black people said, do you think it's okay to be white? And, apparently over 50% of them said no. And either said no or they're not sure, whatever. The opportunity to say black people like, there it is. So look at O'Shea's video. He goes into asking questions about the research itself, like how much of the population did this actually cover? You see, how many people? 50% of how many people? But anyway, it's neither here nor there, but this just shows you. So now what happens and about how black people are racist and all of that. And guess what? And that's why the title of the video says, Elon Musk finally reveals how he feels about black people. Elon Musk. So much. I don't get it. But anyway, I was saying that black people are cool. And that's why I haven't been praising white dude from here in South Africa, and yeah, he's gone on to do well for himself. I'm very clear on that. South Africans love to claim this dude. And yet, in almost every interview, this guy, South Africa is, where he had all these traumatic childhood memories. Guy has nothing good to say about South Africa. The guy is not even in South Africa. He's moved on. And he gets to America and guess what? Aligns with the right wingers. Surprise? No. There's some things that when they happen, they don't surprise me. They don't shock me. like when a white person does or says racist things, I expect it. But I would hope they don't. But I expect it, and that's why I'm not shocked. And that's why I'm so yeah, really. That's our first story. To your attention. So let me just shoot to speak to it. For now here, I'm not going to play it. There was that white boy who called the K word, used the K word to refer to an EFF, young black man. And, this white boy was sitting there with, a white woman there. I don't know, that's his girlfriend, whatever. But yeah, he's there having a good time and, saying those kinds of things. Racism, prejudice and hatred in its true form. So on the one hand, you have Elon Musk whining about, oh, black people are now being racist. Then you have actual real things, like what that boy did there, that your man, Penuel, the black pen, is talking about. So yeah, there's that story. That happened not too long ago, recently. And now, in your mind, logically, you have to be thinking, okay, this young man obviously didn't teach himself to think like this. So obviously, there are quite a lot of white racists in South Africa who are passing down the tradition. Facts. If that doesn't sit well with you, well, I don't create reality, man. I just look at it for what it is, Now, was another guy who made an outrageous statement. This guy's name again, I forget him. Something Prince, mercenary from the US. This guy said he believes that they must just put their imperial hats back on and come and colonize Africa again because, apparently Africans cannot govern themselves. Apparently, that's what the narrative is. So, is this video, the one on your screen right now, they are unpacking that very issue. This guy is the founder of, that organization, Blackwater. And yeah, guy said, no, you know what, Africans are incapable of governing themselves, and we just need to put back on our imperial hats. And, in this particular video, the thing they asked was, well, it's interesting. It would be interesting to note when in history America, took off their imperial hat. I thought that was interesting. But anyway, I hope this one played.
There was a
better. Let's check it out.
company called Blackwater, and then they changed their name to Jay. Right? And then they name, like, they've been through like multiple different names. And part of the reason why you do that is because you've developed such a horrible reputation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would Blackwater have to rebrand?
Oh, it was Jay. You're right. It was Jay. And
Yeah.
was it
Apologies, family, for the bad connection. But the point is made. This guy, forget his name, Eric Prince is his name. Eric Prince, founder of, Blackwater. I think it's an investment company or something, military and all these other things that they're into. But basically, this guy says we need to really, and he's starting from the migration crisis that is happening, where you have all these people from all over the place, trying to get to the UK, the US, Canada, and he's saying, no, we, the Western world, we need to put our imperial hat on and just go back into those countries, establish order, man, establish order, because they just cannot govern themselves. But anyway, watch this video. It's the Majority Report, and they break it down nicely here, and they just expose the hypocrisy, of all that stuff that was being said. It's absolutely ridiculous. This notion that Africans are incapable of governing themselves, and now we need some big brother here. These folks don't get tired, man. And so, given all of that, and looking at just how vulnerable Africa is to world powers, other nations, governments, corporations, vulnerable. And of course, one of the biggest breaches we have in Africa, leaders, man, African politicians. A huge security risk for the African continent. We, the youth, are going to have to, all of these guys. You see, this is the thing. This is the thing, and this is why I struggle with blaming Europeans for where we still find ourselves. Because throughout the continent, you've got greedy, selfish leadership. When these world powers come into our countries and they want to exploit our resources, these guys be giving them deals for their own personal benefit, not deals or agreements that are going to benefit all of us in our country. Our leaders are putting themselves first. And that's why, folks, when I started, I said I put myself at the center of my universe. So I'm not going to be standing there chanting, for Black leaders. This is our hero. Oh, he's a Pan-Africanist. Oh, he's pro-Black. Look, man, that may be the case. Still human. And as a human, you know, understand nothing. Um, and the white sort of economic sector, but ultimately both these two sides have their own interests, and that's why they're able to negotiate and settle things in your absence. You the regular folks like you see, and that's why I'm saying to you, you cannot put all of your faith and your trust in politics, in protesting, in voting. Really, you need to think beyond that. Now we need to start thinking about how do we change the power dynamics between us? Like, and it has to start at an individual level. Like, you have to really be asking yourself, and especially as a man, come on, as men, as African men, we have to ask ourselves, how much of my environment am I really in charge of and in control of? And we have to start with our communities, and then move out from there. You know, the other races, nations, by and large, they see us as Prince can say what he's saying, you know, that, we are incapable of doing anything. I'm not worried about that. I don't need to be loved by anyone, but I do want to win. Okay. I do want us as Africans to win. In the next 10, 20 years, I would like to see Africa in control of its resources, dealing with the rest of the world as an equal, and stating what it is that we want, what we are willing to give, and for what price. You understand? And even imagining becoming dominant. Kumbaya, let's get together, let's love one another. I'm not sure about that. But the one thing I know is that my ancestors, wherever they are, in whatever form they are in, are asking me, what's happening? Why are you guys at the bottom? And why aren't you fighting to change this? I mean, my ancestors fought many wars. There's many different people, built many kingdoms. What's wrong with y'all? When don't you want to be the bully of European power, China and all these other places, Russia and them? And by the way, while I am there, I think there's some confusion. There's a Zambian politician, I forget his name. He made this famous speech. He went to Beijing, I think it was last year somewhere, and he was busy making speeches about how, China is the greatest thing in the world, and he even made the statement, just like it was said in the past, all roads lead to Rome. He said all roads lead to Beijing. Like, come on, y'all. We are not trying to move away from European hegemony and subjugation so that we can go under now the Chinese. Now Beijing is our new lord. No. Our position as African men is to say this is our territory. We have our own agency. We have our own vision for our future, what it is that we want to see. We have a very clear picture of how we want to govern ourselves and what we want to do with our resources. and who are going to deal with. The Chinese are not our friends. The Russians are not our friends. I don't even think you could really categorize them as allies, because, I mean, allies, you see, like, for example, America is an ally of Britain. How do we know? If Britain goes to war, they can call on America to go to war along with them. Now, if we, for example, if America decided to invade us because we are busy raising hell there in, the Gaza, Palestine, free Palestine, if the Americans decide they come in, you best believe the Chinese and the Russians are not going to get involved in it unless it aligns with their geopolitical interests. Y'all don't have any friends. And I don't know what this obsession is with having friends, being liked, and all of this. Why don't these ones like us? Why? It doesn't matter who likes you or who don't like you. Do you want to become powerful? Do you want to, change the power dynamic? I want to talk to those people who are sober, who are clear-headed, and who are able to not think in a linear fashion. Some people just think all white people are bad and all black people are good. And it's part of the thing that influences this kind of thinking that we must just take away the borders because there's Africa and all of that. And I'm with Pan-Africanism, but please, man, let's make sense. Let's make sense, folks. It's hot in here, and I'm sweating too. It is the hot season here. But African family, this is what was on my mind. These are my thoughts on, some global trends in politics, social movements, and so on. But yeah, I really think as Africans, we need to decide, man, what it is that we want to do. And we need to get rid of all weak leaders. We need to get rid of all of them. No loyalties. I mean, how do you remain loyal to someone who doesn't care anything for you? I mean, these politicians ain't loyal, and we know this. Politicians ain't loyal. So I don't know what your thoughts are, family, but let's have this conversation. Let's hear about. But these are my thoughts, just looking at politics. Having a global view of politics, the position that we as Africans are in. Pretty much, I think we're playing. But you can let me know, folks. You can let me know what you think. Family, I leave you in perfect love and peace as I found you. Until next time.